This video is sponsored by Gfuel. Gfuel is the official energy drink of esports, but you don't have to play video games to enjoy it. Trust me, I am sadly in mild retirement from video games at the moment due to scheduling conflicts, but I'll tell you what doesn't retire: my exhaustion. So Gfuel is really great because it has lots of caffeine, which I love, but it also has no sugar, tons of vitamins and antioxidants, all in their delicious flavors. So you get a really good energy boost, focus, endurance, all the good stuff without the bad stuff. They actually just sent me a Gfuel fridge, which is adorable and now lives in my stream room. As you probably know, Gfuel comes in a couple of different forms. We have the cans, as I mentioned. There are also tubs, which is great because you can measure out the powder however much you'd like. Single-use packets, really good for traveling. Energy crystal, and there is even a caffeine-free hydration formula. There are also very cool shakers, and a lot of them will go along with the flavor. So here's the collectible box edition of the Sonic Peach Ring flavor. Very cool. So go to gfuel.com and use my code Gibi for 30% off your order. Thank you so much, Gfuel, for sponsoring today's video, and thank you for watching. Hello, everybody. It's Gibi, or as you're about to call me, Genius, because I'm about to explain things to you. That's right, sit down, get in bed, close your eyes. You know nothing. I know everything. I know all of it. And I'm gonna explain it to you. And I'm definitely gonna know what I'm talking about. I need a whiteboard, I think. Okay, so this video was a very stupid, dumb idea by me, yours truly, and I've kind of seen this request go around whenever I ask people, like, oh, what are like your rare ASMR triggers? And it's when people are like explaining things, and I'll either get requests to explain things that I know a lot about, and like they don't really care about the topic, you just want to hear someone passionately explaining something they're knowledgeable on, or explaining things that you have no idea what you're talking about. For some reason that can trigger your ASMR. It's almost similar to like the lying trigger when you say, do you like my new blue pen? It's a great blue pen. I love this blue pen. It writes so well. ASMR Alyssa does that a lot. There's something about being told wrong facts, wrong things blatantly, like it just like kind of like jumbles your brain a little bit, and I think that can trigger ASMR. A lot of like news outlets and things like that, they're like, oh, ASMR, it's nice sounds. I'm like, no, it's not. Nice sounds can trigger ASMR, but a lot of things can trigger ASMR. Typically, they're going to be more relaxing, personal attention, soothing things, that kind of stuff. But really random stuff can trigger ASMR. So we're going to try today. What I did is I tweeted it out, and I also put it on the community tab. I got so many responses. There's a lot of like repeats, etc. But what I did was I had Ben write some down and put them in here. So I have no idea what's in here. I'm going to pull a paper out and I'm going to explain whatever is on the paper to you in full confidence. I will definitely know what I'm talking about. It's about to make me feel so stupid, because think about like all the things you know. Think about all the things that you feel confident speaking on. It's not that many, is it? Now think of all the things that you don't feel confident speaking on. literally everything else. Got it. Okay, here we go. Let me explain to you Doctor Who lore. So, Doctor Who was actually the very first sci-fi movie ever created. He actually had a name, and they couldn't remember it. Like, none of the fans could ever remember Doctor Who's real name. So they would always say, like, wait, Doctor Who was it? And the creator of Doctor Who, Ethan Higgins, thought that was hilarious and adopted it for the next Doctor Who movie. So that was really considered the first Doctor Who movie. The original Doctor Who, see, I can't even remember the original name. Like, that's how bad it was. And eventually they just shortened it to the Doctor because there's a bunch of them. It's kind of like a multi-universe situation. And there's about 12 of them. There's 12 doctors. Only one of them is a woman, of course, because the ratio has to be even. And they fly around. None of them are in the same universe. It's kind of like, well, it's nothing like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because almost all of them are in the same universe. None of the doctors are in the same universe. And one comes out every year on Christmas Eve because it's the gift to the world. So I know the doctors, they call people on the telephone a lot, and that's kind of like the superpower, is the telephone booth. You go in, if the doctor brings you into the telephone booth, like, you're going on an adventure, and the doctor will, like, call a number, and then Bill and Ted, really copied from Doctor Who, unfortunately, and you kind of fly throughout the different worlds, and you go and visit, like, different historical places. So it's sci-fi, but it's also really accurate in terms of, like, historical fiction and historical retellings as well. So each doctor, like, tends to, like, go to different parts of history and time. Their weapon is a screwdriver, and this screwdriver it's kind of like a sci-fi / like magical wand. They don't really explain how it works, but it can erase people's memory. It can, like, laser beam through doors. It has a lot of, like, different purposes, so they kind of leave that open-ended for future doctors. Each doctor kind of has, like, a specialty thing with their screwdriver. And there's a lot of heartbreak. People get left behind in different universes. The doctors can never marry. It's against HIPAA. And the next Doctor Who movie should be out. Well, it's almost Christmas Eve, so it'll be in your local IMAX theater. I love Doctor Who. It's my favorite series. But even more than Doctor Who, I would love to tell you about the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars were a pretty tragic part of the Star Wars universe. You have Doctor Who and you have Star Wars, you know. So the Star Wars lore can get even more complicated. Basically, what the Clone Wars is, I'm watching Clone Wars right now, and I'm definitely paying attention, and let me prove it to you. So Anakin Skywalker, he has a huge neck, right? And tiny little shoulders. So he's super self-conscious about that, which makes him a huge, like, kind of like rude person. Super self-conscious about his giant neck and tiny shoulders. And he has a Padawan, Ahsoka, and his Jedi leader is the one and only beautiful Obi-Wan Kenobi. So Anakin, we'll skip past his childhood, because it's like, okay, we're going to justify Anakin, blah, 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 turning evil eventually, but you know what? It's really not that deep. He's just not a good person. So Anakin and Obi-Wan and all the Jedi, they are working with the Stormtroopers. So the Stormtroopers are all clones of this one guy, and his name is Maximus. And Maximus cloned himself voluntarily. We don't really know where the original Maximus is, but all the stormtroopers are actually human beings. They're clones, but they're really human beings, so it's kind of actually traumatic when they die all over the place, but no one seems to care but me. And the droids, the Roger droids, hate the clones. They don't actually hate the clones, they're just programmed to hate the clones. And the Jedi. So the clones and the Jedis are buddies, and the droids are on the evil people's side, which is General Grievous and the head of the Jedis. He's a double crosser. He's actually the head of the evilness, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is the true leader of the Jedis and not Yoda. So they're fighting all the time. But this isn't the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars is when the clones turn on the Jedi, because Anakin Skywalker kills all the Jedi except for Obi-Wan, because he has the high ground. And that is where the Clone Wars start. So they are fighting their way through the war. I guess the droids and the stormtroopers are evil now. So really the only good person in this universe is Obi-Wan Kenobi. The end. Alright. You kind of have to you have to be really highbrow to be into the Star Wars stuff, so let me tell you about everything I know about sewing and tailoring. I do it all the time. For all my costumes, all my cosplay, everything I do, I sew it from scratch. So what I do is actually I spin the wool. So that's what I do at night. I don't actually sleep. I spin the wool at night. And in the morning, I dye the wool. We have a whole bunch of different fabrics. Right now I'm working with wool. The sheep are great. We have one alpaca. And with sewing, you have to be really careful because it's hard. And you really don't want to have to take the stitching out. That is very annoying. So to make a pattern, you take a piece of clothing that already exists. We're not really sure how the first pattern was ever made. And you lay it down, or you can even cut it apart to really get the pieces. And you want to trace over it on a piece of fabric, cut it out, cut out a couple more pieces, and then you want to sew those together. On a sewing machine, there's bobbins, needles, feet. There are feet involved in this. And what you want to do is sew inside out, and then when you flip it around, you won't see the ugly part of the stitch. There's a knob of the sewing machine with the different stitchings, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just have to guess, and you put the fabric onto the sewing machine. You want to put the needle up, make sure the thread is the color that you want. You put the thread in there at the top, and that thread's going to go down, put it through the needle, and then there's also going to be another thread in the bobbin, and that thread comes up. So you actually have 2 threads, and those are the things that get sewn together. So you want to make sure the needle is up, the foot is up, and then you're going to put your fabric in there and then put it down. So the needle goes into the fabric, the foot is down onto the fabric, and then you have the pedal. The pedal is what you press with your foot, and then you'll start sewing. It's not too hard to sew in a straight line. You just have to concentrate, basically. And when you finish the stitch, you can back stitch a little bit. So you're gonna change the number, change the thing, and then you go backwards, and that kind of gives you a little, the stitch won't come undone. After that, you can cut those strings off, and you've sewn your first thing. Now with tailoring, basically everything you think you can do with tailoring, you can't. So if you buy a pair of pants that are too big for you, you're like, oh, we can just go tailor these. You can't actually do that. The only thing you can tailor is if your pants are too long and you want to hem them to make them shorter, you can do that. That's pretty much it. You can also like add a button. So a little button on there. So tailors are actually kind of, they only do hemming. And if you ask them to take it in, they're like, that is physically impossible. I can't do that. So I wanted to learn how to tailor my own clothes, but I'm so tall that none of my stuff ever needs to be hemmed. So I don't tailor anything. And that's how you sew. But on the days that I'm not sewing, I am playing the violin. Playing the violin, it's hard. It is nothing like the guitar, nothing like the piano, nothing like the drums, nothing like the trumpet. It is a string instrument. I think technically piano is a string instrument, but it's more like a hammer string in there. So the violin, you have to tune it like a guitar. So there's little knobs at the top, and that's going to make your violin, like the strings of the violin, tighter or looser. So you have to, there are 5 strings on a violin. 4, 5, 4, 6. There's 5 strings on a violin, and each one should always be the notes G, A, B, D, F, C. There's 5. And you want to play with it on your shoulder. If you're right-handed, you need to hold it on your left shoulder so your right hand has the bow. And if you're left-handed, you need a left-handed violin. There's a little space for where your head goes, and your neck actually holds the violin. So you should be able to hold it without your arm up. If you're right-handed like me, the left hand is pressing down on the strings, and depending on where your hand is, you're going to have different sounds. Then you have the bow. It's made of a bunch of hairs. It's not one like strip, it's like a bunch of little hairs. And you want to hold it by the end, and you put it up here, and when you go up, it's going to make a different sound than when you go down. If you're hitting different strings, if you're hitting the same string, it should sound the same. Now the hard part about violin is that it kind of curves. You have to go like, so it's very hard. And that's the difficult part, is you're always bumping strings that you don't mean to. But the best part about the violin is making the sound. And to do that, you just kind of shimmy your hand as you're moving it. So it's like a 4D motion there. Is there anything else you want to know about the violin? I think I covered it. Actually, I think that was pretty good, to be honest with you. Now on the weekends, I do competition archery. And if you want to get into that, let me give you some tips. So for competition archery, all the competitions are super early in the morning. It's just a lot quieter in the morning. You kind of get more of the vibe. So you're gonna have to get up really, really early. And depending on which bow you have, that's gonna be the like ranking that you're in. So there's like the short bow, the long bow, the crossbow, and then there is like a custom bow section. So you can use absolutely anything in that section. You can build your own. There are some electric bows. But a lot of like competition archers, they like kind of frown on that. It's kind of like X Games for archery. So, now with competition archery, you're gonna get 10 arrows, and your judge, you have to submit your program to the judge, and you're gonna say, this is what I'm gonna hit. And it's kind of like gymnastics where different things are harder to hit, so those will get you more points, but then you actually have to hit them. So if you say you're gonna hit, and each spot on the board has a different number, so 10, 20, 30, and then 100, 5, that kind of stuff. You submit the program that you're going to do, and then you have to go and do that program. So you go one at a time, and you take your bow. Your quiver can be on your back or on your thigh, and you have 10 arrows. Everybody has to use the exact same arrows. They are 14 inches in length, very sharp, feathers on the end. It's like just for show though, like the feather doesn't really do anything unless you get like really high in the competition, then the competition feathers are So with shooting a bow and arrow, to start practicing, you want to make sure that you're holding the wood part, or if whatever you have, whatever it's made out of. It depends. Like the people who are traditionalists really like wood, aluminum, polycarbonate, really popular. You hold it by that, and then the string, you load the arrow in with the right hand, and then the string, you almost want it to just brush your face, and you let go. You don't want to move anything. You can go like this, but everything should be in line, and you let go. You can take archery classes. They're usually offered at the YMCA, and just kind of go from there. Competition archery is pretty hard to get into. There's a lot of like gatekeeping, you know, a lot of drama actually, but if you win, you can go up to the next tier, and the higher tiers actually start winning cash prizes. So that's why most people do it, for the money. Yeah, but it's good. I like doing it. And my favorite part about competition is actually one of my side hobbies, which is psychoanalysis and how the mind works. And this is kind of simple. Most people will learn this, you know, in college, Psych 101. After you take that, you pretty much know everything. Like, you are qualified after taking Psych 101. So, if I show the brain, like this is the top of the head, right? We have the brain inside the top of the head, and that is cut into like sections like this. So there's a bunch of different sections. This is the cerebellum. This is the hippocampus. This is this is the lymph section. So you know your lymph nodes, like this is the lymph. You have the nodes, and this is the lymph. And then these sections are actually the medulla, this is like the second section, and the toil. So all of these are going to work together. There's a lot of like synapses, there's things firing away. What's going on there? So you have like your memory, anxieties, all that kind of stuff, emotions. So we have like kind of like the thinking mind here. So this is like analysis, rational. And then the hippocampus, this is kind of where like fear, anxiety, emotions. But then the good emotions are actually pumping from 2. and they kind of spread out into these things. So when you're trying to psychoanalyze someone, really what's going on is you're going deep into the two. And this is the most misunderstood part of the brain, is the second section here, because it shares an area with the lymph. You just often get a lot of nuances, and that's why everybody has a different personality. There are so many grooves and wiggles and wrinkles in the brain. Not everybody has the same grooves and dimples and wrinkles as your brain has. In fact, your brain is like a fingerprint. No one is the same. So when something happens to your brain, lest it be a bump on the head, say you bump into the toil, you may no longer have a working memory. Say you drink a lot in college. This medulla, it can shrink up to 71%. Every Bud Light you drink, 0.25% reduction in size of the medulla. So you're actually going to notice a lot of changes. So with psychoanalysis, you have to dig really deep. And when you're asking people questions, deep questions about their relationship with their parents, their thoughts on the world, existentialism, it's the two. You are causing things to come out and spread out all around the brain, and that's going to give us our information. So asking questions actually shoots the information out, and if you know how to read that, you know exactly what's going on in someone's brain without even using any scans. Very cool stuff. What's even cooler is astrophysics. Now, I did receive the physics award in high school. It was a class called conceptual physics, and it was called conceptual physics because you only learned concepts. You didn't actually apply those concepts with math or anything like that. So astrophysics is kind of like conceptual physics, where there's no math involved. It's just people making up concepts about what's going on in space. So let me go ahead and erase this. Might need to use this board again. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. So astrophysics is people predicting how things would move in space. So we know now that ym2x, that's gravity. But in space, the astrophysics, we're trying to figure out what would gravity be in space. We're trying to conceptualize that. So instead of ym squared x, maybe in space, it's ym squared m. You see what I mean? So astrophysics was really popular before we landed on the moon in 1969. And now that people are actually in space and able to put these concepts to work, it's kind of falling out of fashion. Nobody really does astrophysics anymore. It's kind of just like a hobby for fun. You can apply it to fake worlds, like, again, we can go back to Star Wars, Planet Batuu. You know, people are like, I wonder if a train from Batuu was rolling down a ramp at 60 miles per hour, but it gained speed every time Jar Jar Binks ran across the tracks. You know, how fast would that be going when it collided with a ship? So, like, that's kind of the astrophysics that really goes on nowadays, because the astronauts are just doing regular physics in space. Well, this one's from Ben. He wants me, and I understand why he wants me to do this because I explain it so well. Explain in detail what you think the plot is for Spider-Man No Way Home and what it means for the multiverse going forward. Great question, Ben. Spider-Man No Way Home is going to absolutely change the multiverse, and we didn't really have a Spider-Man multiverse until the animated Spider-Man movie, which was called Into the Spider-Verse, right? So Into the Spider-Verse introduced all the Spider-Men that we knew and one small Spider-Girl, I believe, together. So finally all the lore came together. You know, everyone's arguing who's the best Spider-Man, who's the best Spider-Man, who's the best Spider-Man. Stan Lee got kind of fed up and he was like, they're all actually Spider-Man, so you can stop complaining about it. And it was all animated into one movie because the actors who have played Spider-Man, some of them don't look that good anymore. So Tobey Maguire actually wrote Into the Spider-Verse, and then Tom Holland got jealous and wrote No Way Home. So No Way Home, the plot is that all the spiders have gone into one New York City. And let me tell you, there's a lot of them. And there's no way home. There's no way to get them back home. So this one universe is now half the population is Spider-Man, which is insane. And when you take into account all the other Avengers, really they're irrelevant now because of the sheer ratio of Spider-Man to other Avengers. So I think eventually what we're going to see with the plot, and the plot is that the spiders eventually have to, you know, resort to predatory instincts. There's only Spider-Man on this planet. No way home for anyone. So the multiverse going forward is a little bleak. They're kind of trying to phase it out, I think. Marvel, they're phasing it out. Spider-Man only. It's kind of disappointing. I wish that they went a more creative route, you know, but I get it. Like, you kind of have to. The Marvel multiverse is not like going that well, so I understand why you kind of have to smother it, just get rid of it. I think Tom Holland could have done a little better writing the script, honestly, but you know, the plot is fine. It's exciting. It's like a little dramatic, like a bunch of the Spider-Men fall in love with each other, which is, well, I guess you'll see. All right, on to something more interesting. Let's talk about the influence of Flemish art on the Italian Renaissance. So the Flemish are really underrated artists in art history. And what we see in Flemish art is a lot of birds, a lot of fields, and a lot of metal. Okay? And you kind of put this all together, you're going to start getting kind of a dark, industrial, natural vibe. And this is why the Flemish were so brilliant, because the art that they were producing didn't even exist in their world at the time. The Flemish had never seen birds in real life, you know, And because they lived on such a rocky land, fields didn't really exist either. And metal didn't exist at all. So when historians kind of uncovered the Flemish art, which we're going to get to in a second, they almost wanted to cover it up because there was something suspicious going on. So with the Italian Renaissance, we got a huge boom in Christianity, and the Christians actually took all of the Flemish art and they saw these things on it. They had never seen birds before either. Before the Renaissance, they had never seen fields, and metal didn't exist. So when they saw the Flemish art, they thought, okay, first of all, the Flemish are cuckoo, they're crazy. But then all of a sudden, birds started flying ahead. They went to the countryside. There were fields. The Industrial Revolution, which was happening at the same time as the Italian Renaissance, brought metal. So the Italians, the Christianity, really, that was ruling the Italian Renaissance at the time, thought that this was a mark of the demon. The Flemish were doing predictions, like witchcraft predictions. So they attempted to burn absolutely everything except for one priest who was in a secret love affair with the top Flemish artist, and his name was Georgi. Didn't have a last name. He took all of Georgi's art and hid it in the catacombs, okay? And that is how historians actually found the Flemish art eventually. But how it influenced the Italian Renaissance art was, they couldn't burn all the art. There wasn't really a good way to destroy it, so they would just paint over it. And that's why Italian Renaissance art is so dark. All the skies, very dark because they're covering up the birds. The fields were painted over with churches. And the metal, they just kind of painted wood over that and stone. So try as they might, art historians have tried to uncover the old Flemish art underneath the Italian Renaissance art, but they couldn't. So that's why Italian Renaissance art, historians never really understood why it was so terrible. It was so bad. And we now know that it was essentially just a panicked cover-up of the Flemish art. But we did get to find that the original Georgis in the catacombs, which was really exciting, 2016. So this is pretty recent. Very exciting if you follow art history. All right. We have Rubik's Cube algorithms. How to install a turbo on a car. You just press the button. Explain what an NFT is. Avant-garde fashion. How flippers and bumpers work on a pinball machine. I don't know this one. How do they work? How do you play pinball? How do you play pinball? All right. Last one we'll do is Formula One racing. Formula One racing is NASCAR's cooler older brother. NASCAR is American, where Formula One is everyone's allowed except for Americans. And the reason that Formula One racing was made was because NASCAR wouldn't let international drivers come in and race. So what they did was they tried to make NASCAR 2, and NASCAR said, no, you can't do that. But what somebody discovered, a Swedish racer actually discovered that NASCAR was working on a project called Formula 2. So they took that name and named it Formula One. And then they sued NASCAR for taking their name, Formula 2. It was a huge debacle. It was really dramatic. We all thought that NASCAR was gone forever. But they survived. And the difference between NASCAR and Formula 1, NASCAR you do 300 laps. Formula 1, you do 450 laps. And the cars are much sleeker, much thinner, much faster. There are way more accidents. In fact, that's all I ever see about Formula 1 racing. That's really the only thing I see about it. And so when I went to Formula 1 school, I was expecting it to be really hard. And it was. It was hard. But most of it is just automatic. And really what you need to do for Formula 1 racing is you just need to kind of bulk up the upper shoulders. And it's more about controlling the wheel than anything else. Obviously you have to steer and swerve and like make sure you don't hit anyone, but there's like a good balance in the Formula 1 cars that the NASCAR cars don't really have. And there's races every week. They're on Fridays. Formula 1 races every Friday. There's different drivers that are selected to be in it. There's about, I would say, 300 drivers in Formula 1 racing. Otherwise you have to get on the wait list, and you have to do kind of like underground Formula 1 racing. Formula 3, because they couldn't take Formula 2 back from NASCAR. And then if you're good enough at Formula 3, you get bumped up to Formula 1. And the formula they're referring to was actually taken, again, from NASCAR's Formula 2. And it was the formula of cars and money equaling more money. So Formula 1 is just cars. You know, it's kind of a simple concept. All right, well, that is all the time I have today. Thank you for coming to class. I hope you learned something valuable, and this will be on the test. So study hard.